Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, people of all ages, welcome back to the Sticky Floors podcast. I am one of your hosts, CJ. I am joined by Mr. Will, and tonight we are talking about Dune 2, which doesn't have anything after it. It's not The Atreides Strikes Back, it's not Revenge of the Atreides. It's just Dune 2, and that works for it because this is an awesome movie. We are gonna get into this one. We're gonna have some fun with it. I do want to just give a couple of quick disclaimers, just two quick disclaimers for all the listening and viewing audience. Number one, so me and Mr. Will, we know the history that surrounds these movies. We know that they're based on books. However, for tonight's podcast, we are talking strictly about what we see in these movies. So if you know when like Dune Book 5, Paul turns into a worm, cool. We're not going to touch that in this movie. It's a great story that exists there, but we're just sticking to what's here. That's the first disclaimer. Second disclaimer is if you we're not going to try to compare this movie, which came out in January of 2024, to movies from the past, because I know we know that there's two other Dune movies that actually tell the stories of Dune 1 and 2, but we're not doing a compare and contrast with those. So if you're looking for a breakdown of that, that's a different podcast with a different two very handsome gentlemen talking about it. Last but not least, so this, as I said, this was in the movie theaters in January. It's now available in your homes. It's on all the channels, and if you have HBO Max, it's at or Max as it's called now. It's actually available for free. I'm very sad about that because in preparation for this, I actually bought it from Amazon for $19.99 2 days before it became free on HBO Max. But here we are. So I'm not going to hold that against the
That's
film.
tough.
Yo, shout outs for Amazon for getting me. Good job, Amazon. As always, y'all win. And I'm going to pass it over to my main man, Mr. Will, to give us the synopsis of Dune 2.
Oh man, as always, CJ, great introduction. Um, I just want to comment real quick about the movie experience. This is one of my favorite movies, only because while going into the theater to see it, um, there was so much hype about the cast, the screenwriting, the cinematography, every way, and it didn't disappoint. I hate to bury the lead, but I just want to welcome the audience and prepare them for this journey, letting them know that we might be a little hyped at times about this, so trying to reel it back in. Um, but with that being said, get right into it. Within this crucible of power, the young Paul Atreides embarks on a journey that mirrors the existential angst and quest for justice of Hamlet, questioning the ethics of power and his place within a war torn universe. His rise to power amidst the collapse of his noble family draws parallels to the tragic fall of dynasties chronicled in history and literature alike. Embodying the tragedy and triumph of human experience, the Machiavellian plots that thicken around him are rife with betrayal and struggle for dominance, as every faction seeks to manipulate the currents of fate to their favor.
There it is, man. And I hear you referencing the Shakespearean
Yeah.
tragedy part of this because I do think that that's extremely relevant to this story that we see here, and it's probably one of the reasons why the story resonates so well with so many people, us included. We always kick it off by starting with some of the main kind of themes and overview, and I know you got a couple, so I'm gonna pass it over to you to get us started in that discussion.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. Like I said, there is a tremendous amount of overlap with everything that we've encountered in this world, whether it be your own personal experience, someone you know, something you read, you watched on TV, whatever have you. But I think chief amongst them is, since we live in the United States, is this discussion about assimilation and adaptation. Now,
Mhm.
being that I try to speak from a historical, practical standpoint, um, just here in the United States, when individuals come from their native countries, they have to navigate so many obstacles just to get here. Um, and that hardship either expedites their process in assimilation or it's a major deterrent that oftentimes there's a great deal of hardship and the inability to do so. Um, so, with this particular movie, you're dealing with Paul and his mom. they are coming from, their lug of basically their penthouse in the sky. They living it up.
Mhm.
They got the
Mhm.
the lush greenery, and I mean, Paul even tells Shani like, yeah, we go swimming, like we
Mhm.
dive in the ocean. There's plenty of water. We got so much water, we don't
Yeah.
know what to do with it. And
Yeah.
just that chasing, his family's getting butchered, the betrayal, and then all of a sudden he gets to this planet with him and his mom, through Herculean efforts, and they're like, hey, this is not Kansas anymore. And fortunately they encounter a similar Bedouin type people, the Freemen, who are able to bring them in, teach them their ways, and Paul and his mom actually not only adopt their ways as their own, but they adopt the planet in a very unique way, I'll say.
That's a good point. I mean, the thing, the idea of them having to assimilate, they absolutely do. They have to assimilate to survive, right? And for them, it's almost like everything kind of flipping on its
Mhm.
head, because when they first come there, they get to come there as the
Yeah.
conquerors or as the colonizers, right? If we go back
If
to
you want
our
to keep it real.
Black Panther to our Black Panther language,
Yeah.
right? So they get to come, and they can choose how they want to interact with the Fremen. And then when the Harkonnens destroy their family and destroy everything basically for them, now Paul and his mom are forced to assimilate for their survival. And it's interesting because I think there's a bit of a distinction between the way the mother,
Oh,
Jessica, does it and the way that Paul does it.
well, I think that is true to their natures, and where they're at in life. With Lady Jessica, Paul's mother, I think she's more advanced because she was Paul already. When you get further along in the story, you'll come to know that she was actually from the house of Markinen, and there was that twists and turns of her manipulating not only her own family members but even her husband, and just the whole process of uh, Paul being born. They don't have they typically have daughters. They get rid of the son. The father, he was naive, so she kind of like played off of that and manipulated him in such a way where she basically got over on everybody. Whereas Paul, he's young, he's being groomed, but he still has that innocence amongst him. He even adopts, like surrogate fathers. I forget Jason Momoa's character's name in the first one, but I mean, with
Duncan,
Dunk, yeah,
Idaho.
that's it, Duncan, Idaho.
Duncan, Idaho.
But he still adopts, his trainers as his own. So you see the connection there where he's able to establish genuine, sincere bonds. In fact, he starts speaking their language. He tries to adopt some
Hmm.
of their customs. He dates their women. I mean, he doesn't try to like bogart, but I mean, he kind of like
Yeah,
smoothly navigates his way in there.
yeah. Paul does what people who are used to having access do,
Mm,
which is he takes the access that he gets. Like it's interesting because like it makes you wonder if a person comes from a regal background, is the idea of regality something that becomes so embedded in your character that other people feel it
mm,
or other people respond to it in a certain way? Because the Fremen, they're not, I wouldn't say initially they're friendly to him, but they are a little bit more inclined to accept him. And it's interesting because obviously we know the Bene Gesserit have put out this idea of the prophecy of the Lisan al Gaib, and so they do that intentionally to protect their own sisters on any planet they go
mhm.
to. And Paul kind of benefits from that, but it's still, even in his destitute, and him and Lady Jessica's destitute state of having to be with the Fremen in order to survive, there's still a little bit of a leg up on what the average person or average citizen might have been in that same situation.
I think, well, they say what this card has its privileges. I think it's Mastercard or whatever.
Your Mastercard, yeah,
Well,
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah. Membership
membership
has
is
its
very privileged,
privileges.
and I think that's the key here. What you recognize as their regality or the sense that they're royals, I think it's more of like a characteristic. If you
Mm-hmm.
know better, you do better. When you're
Mm-hmm.
you're privy to, or like you said, if you have access to certain things, you're going to be inclined to behave a certain way. So with
Mm-hmm.
Paul, he has that confidence, if he was poor, he might be more cognizant of what he doesn't have, and that
Yeah.
insecurity would probably weigh him down. The fact that he is a child essentially, and he's growing up into manhood as a teenager at the time,
Hmm.
I think that also allows him to be more impressionable. I mean, literally, he doesn't try to force his way upon these people, even when he is introduced to Chani in the beginning. There is a deference. He's like, I'm a guest in your house, essentially, and
Hmm.
I'm not going to, maybe be offensive in any way whatsoever.
Yeah, and he knows that, and he's like, they also, and I know this gets back to the first movie, but you also see Paul learning about the
Hmm.
culture of the Fremen before he gets
Yeah.
there, even trying to learn things like the way that they
Right.
walk, like
Yeah.
just everything about it, so that even like when he's kind of going about things, doing things their way, he's also a student of their culture.
Yeah.
He's like the guy. He's gotten the barbecue pass. He showed up at the barbecue and he's like, okay, don't put don't put raisins in the potato salad. I got it. And he did that, right? He knew he studied it. He studied, he knows what he's doing, man.
You got the barbecue pad.
So he did. He knows how to hey, shout out Stan.
Oh man, that's tight. I love that analogy. I think it works too because the fact that at first you actually see him win the crowd like Maximus did in Gladiator, where literally he doesn't do the talking. Even when they try to ostracize him, he plays it like, "Hey, I'm just here to get along. You guys are
Hmm.
doing me a
Hmm.
solid, etc., etc." And I genuinely believe that that is who he is. I mean, the fact that like when he's forced to kill, I can't think of his name right now. Um, uh,
Yeah, the guy in the
yeah,
first one.
when
Yeah.
he
Hmm.
kills him, he still remembers
Hmm.
him. He's still learning lessons from him in his head, in his
Yeah.
mind, and he's incorporating them. The fact that he's willing to learn, even though he says, "Well, my tutors taught me that the walk is this way," he shuts down real quick when she looks at him like,
Yes.
I'm your tutor now, and this is
Yes.
the real world. Not that
Yes.
stuff on another planet. We're here right now. I've been doing this all my life. I think the
Yes.
fact too that borrows into that assimilation and adaptation theme that I was referencing is the individual versus the family, the clan. They're very tribal in the sense that they utilize everything. They
Yeah.
have no waste whatsoever from the way
Yeah.
that they are burying their dead and how they honor them.
Hmm.
And they say like, look, everybody could be dehydrated and begging for water. We would never drink this water. In fact, this is
Yeah.
part of our religion, our belief. We honor these people. And the fact that when the Harkonnens come and they blow up that mountain, that territory, all of them feel the loss as if like it was
Yeah.
reliving death once more. um,
Yeah.
Definitely a very poignant scene there too, mind you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it shows the idea of the Fremen as most indigenous societies tend to be
Mhm.
communal. So they don't have the sense of elevation. And if they do, that elevation is contingent based on character. So Stilgar is in control because he's demonstrated a character that says he should be a leader. You don't get
Right.
born into that. You got to earn that, and to lose it, you got to die in a
Mhm.
fight, in a knife fight, essentially. so
Blood in,
so it's
blood
like
out, man.
right, exactly. So it's very like grounded in the most serious of terms for them and for those people. But you mentioned the idea of like the beliefs part, and I know like beliefs was another of the main points that you had.
Yeah. I think the fact that they are very in tuned obviously resonates throughout the movie. And I don't necessarily mean as far as their environment and sensing the worms and how to walk. I mean the
Hmm.
fact that their spirituality is based very much in their culture, in who they are as a being. I believe that their faith amongst each other is permeant between like the entire film. But last but definitely not least, I believe the fact that they believe in themselves. They're committed to their cause.
Hmm.
They know no means of the word no. That does not exist in their vocabulary whatsoever. I think that with this movie in particular, there's there's three people that kind of embody these spirits, these themes. One obviously is Chani, how she's able to galvanize the people, where even though she doesn't have a regal title, they sense that, yeah, like she is our princess. She is
Mm-hmm.
amongst the people, for the people. I would I would draw akin to her with Padme, when she's Senator Amidala versus when she's the Queen. The next person that I think exudes this is the Reverend Mother Mayhem. I know that this is one of CJ's favorite characters. She,
Oh man, I can't wait to get to her, man.
she,
I can't wait.
she's one of CJ's.
I can't wait. I can't wait.
She's definitely one of CJ's favorites. Um,
Can't
I
wait.
think the fact that how she's able to be a puppet master, and the
Mm-hmm.
fact that throughout the movie they demonstrate that they have this power within, this supernatural ability, and it's
Mm-hmm.
not lost upon the audience that it's called the voice, where it literally changes into some type of like shrill, causing fear, imposing dominance. And that power also allows them to manipulate. But the fact that they use their words in order to maneuver strategically, mind you, through these different alleyways is very on point for this movie. And then last but definitely not least, you have Feyd-Rautha. I think Feyd-Rautha,
Feyd-Rautha,
yeah,
yes, my
yeah.
man. That's one of my legitimate
Yeah,
favorites.
I
Yes.
think the fact that and bear with me, I'll probably mispronounce their names because I know their names are actually either Arabic or they're Hindu or Hebrew. So just bear with me. But this guy, he is sadistic. Obviously, he is just a bad man, psychotic, sociopath, all of that. But um, I would argue that he is a bootstraps, pull yourself up, self-made individual by the fact that he has his own cult. They idolize him.
Mm-hmm.
He's charismatic to them. He is a
Mm-hmm.
deviant, but he's proud of who he is. He is the younger nephew. His bigger brother, played by David Baptiste, the Beast. This guy is imposing on his own, but that doesn't stop him. Like, he lets him know, he checks him from the rip. Like, yo, not only am I taking your title, I'm taking your job, I can do it better than you. I should have been
Mm-hmm.
in the starting lineup, but we deferred to you due to you being born first. And then when he's actually, showing and proven, um, you know, David is just pushed to the background. The beast is just pushed to the background. So that
Yep.
also exudes that whole, belief and commitment in yourself to get the job done.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so first those three characters, and I almost thought you were gonna go Chani, the lady that I'm gonna call old lady Benny Gesserit. And then I thought you were gonna
Guys,
go
Helen.
Jessica, Lady Jessica on the third part.
Nah.
Thank you for saying that. I thought you were gonna go guy. I thought you were gonna go Lady Jessica on the third one. But I think like that's another great thing about the way that this movie is constructed. It gives you these complex real female characters that jump off the screen and have their own agenda and their own agency, and it works in the context of the movie. Chani, I think what Zendaya does so much, she does so much with her
Mhm.
eyes and her face without talking in this movie, and I'm going to get to that a little bit later. That I love, and I would say it's interesting. You compared her with Padme. I would also say she can almost acts as a stand-in for Princess Leia,
Mm.
who you don't know when you're first watching those first three movies. You don't know that she's actually the daughter
Mm.
of a queen. She's a rebel and a freedom fighter. But even that, there's something still regal about
Mhm.
her. You know what I mean? And Chani definitely has that. And I think Zendaya just brings that to every role that she plays. When you were talking about the what was it? What's the Benny Gesserit lady's
Yeah,
name again?
Helen.
'Cause I'm messing up all the
It's
time.
Reverend Mother Helen Gaius Mayhem.
Yeah. So here's another. The third disclaimer is we are absolutely going to mess these names up, right? Like my tongue is not made to get all of these, but we're going to try our best, right? Her she is like the female version of Emperor Palpatine. She's
Mm.
playing the long game no matter what. At the end when Lady Jessica says to her, "You chose the wrong side," and she's like, "Don't you know there are no
Mhm.
sides?" like she tells you right there, like, "Nah, you think it's about this, but really,
Three
I'm thinking 3,000 years from now." And
three-dimensional chess.
yeah, and I like that. I dig that. And then like Feyd-Rautha, this one of the characters that I really like. I think you really hit on something with him and his relationship with Batista, with Dave Batista, and the character there. Immediately when you're talking, like I know just on some basketball stuff, I was like, yeah, he like got that he got that Anthony Edwards energy, man, taking that crown from Nikola Jokic. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you was the king, but I'm on you now. I'm taking it. Like he definitely has that energy, and I think you hit on a great point. Feyd-Rautha, you may not like
Hmm.
him, but he likes
Yeah.
him. He likes him some
Hmm.
him. You know what I mean? Like you can tell, like he's like that Nas line when Nas says, like I can't lie, it's fun being
Hmm.
me. Like Feyd-Rautha enjoys being a menace.
Yeah.
like he enjoys it. He loves it, and I think that's the juxtaposition between him and Paul because they both want the same thing. They both want to be the emperor. But Paul is like almost dragging himself to it, whereas Fade is like, oh word, I could be the emperor. Like when Harkonnen tells him like I can make you emperor, he's like, oh word, I'm in, I'm down.
Mm.
How do we put the work in the bag? Let's go.
I think I have pushback on that. Um, I think that it's not that Paul is dragging himself. I think he's doing everything to try and be a good man and keep that part of him, retain his positive outlook on life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a struggle within, where he's trying to balance what is balance for him. He's got the devil and the
Mm-hmm.
angel on each shoulder. But as the movie
Mm-hmm.
progresses, he commits more bad acts, if you will, quote unquote. And that leads
We're
him
gonna get into it.
down a path of destruction. I think that the influence of the characters around him, and this is what is so dope about the movie, is the fact that they have these individuals where you don't see them as just like, oh, that's Dave Bautista. Oh, that's Christopher Walken. Like they exude and embody the essence of what those characters are trying to achieve. So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, the Reverend Mother Helen, Gaius Helen, she, like you talked about, she's a complex individual who exudes tendencies that are quote unquote evil. Where she puts Paul's hand in the box and you're thinking like
Mm-hmm.
no good can come from that. And she's got the poison
Mm-hmm.
ready to inject him if he flinches or pulls his hand out.
Mm-hmm.
Like you start thinking like, this is a child. You're supposed to be
Mm-hmm.
motherly. What gives you
Yeah.
the audacity to do something like that?
Yeah.
But as you noted, like she picked Lady Jessica, and even the way that like she gets what's her face, the princess. I can't think of her name right now. Played by Black Widow's sister, Pug.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
know.
you
Pew.
pew. The way that she manipulates her, like she's ready to step up. She's like, yeah, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to save my father. You know your role, you know your place. It's go time. Are you ready to come off the
Yeah.
bench now? And she jumps at the chance. But that shows how prepared she was in order to get things in motion. She foresaw that there was the possibility that she would need her at a later date. There was no reference to
Yeah.
her in the first part of the movie. So all of a sudden, when
Yeah.
you see her, maybe as a first time viewer, you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's the Benny Gesserit are playing the long
Yeah.
game. And what you start to realize in this movie is that they are strategically placing women near seats of
Yeah.
power to usurp the power,
Definitely.
right? And they're very strategic. And they're like she said, like she told Lady Jessica, she's playing a different type of game. Like you're playing soccer and she's playing
Mhm.
basketball. Like she's playing a whole different type of game where points are being scored differently. I think the one thing that I would just go back to about the idea of like the emperor and how the emperor sees himself, how Paul sees himself, how Feyd-Rautha sees himself. It reminds me of in Black Panther when T'Challa first goes to the ancestral
Mhm.
realm, and I always thought that one of the things that really stuck with me with that scene is when his father tells him, "You are a good man with a good
Smart.
heart, but it's
Mm.
hard for a good
Be a
man to be
king.
king."
Yeah.
And it's like he doesn't say, "Yo, it's easier if you're a
Mhm.
dirtbag," but even T'Challa learns his father did some cruel stuff
Killed his brother.
for to protect the throne and the idea. And there's something about that the characters are wrestling with in different ways. And I know the Emperor basically tells Paul, "Yo, your dad wasn't built for this." Like he tells you, your father was a person of the heart. your father, he was a weak man, because to them the heart is like
Mhm.
weakness, right? But he also knows, he's like, yo, I'm looking at you, I can see in your eyes you like cut from the cloth that I am, and I know this maniac behind me, Feyd-Rautha, is. So so like, hey, let's all just talk it out. You know what I mean? But that's not, obviously that's not how it goes.
I think that's interesting that you point that out, of being of a similar, like seeing yourself in someone else. I don't
Mm-hmm.
see that's where my pushback is. Fade Rotha is clearly evil and maniacal. Look at where he comes from. And I think,
Mm-hmm.
that's just an obvious pick, just like Lady Jessica was. That's why I didn't use her as a reference point. It was low hanging fruit.
Mm-hmm.
But with respect to the contrast with Paul, it's like, no, he is the one, but he's the one because he can be strategic, he can be surgical, he can actually play the long game as well. He can balance the two houses. He can take the best of them, make it his own, form a new path altogether. So instead of going left or right, he goes straight. But it's this overwhelming presence of greed that is throughout the movie.
Mm-hmm.
You have it just exude by Vladimir Harkin, where this guy is fat, he's slobbish, but he still has power. He's still a threat. You could still be fearful
Mm-hmm.
of him. He even checks everybody throughout the movie, like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
you're replaceable. Like, don't get it twisted for 1 second that I don't have another you on deck. I'm just trying to give
Yeah.
you an opportunity here. Let's see what you're going to do with it. The fact that he thinks that Duke Leto was weak, I think that's another example of how he's not able to read the tea leaves. Like, the Emperor knows that he can manipulate them because they're only good for one thing: evilness. Like, they're predictable. They
Mm-hmm.
are selfish. They are maniacal. They are saboteurs. So he knows what he's getting. The House of Atreides, it's more like they're all good people. They're regal, they're smart, they're enjoyable, they're pleasant to be around, they're attractive, they have their eyebrows, they got hair, like they're not allergic to the sunlight. You don't have to worry about garlic being around them or steaks. It's like you can walk around with crosses. It's all good. But the fact that him calling him weak, I think is the sense that he knows, like, oh, he doesn't have to be violent in order to get what he wants. He can be charming and he can come in and be pleasant, easygoing. He can adapt. He can get the others to assimilate. Like, they're controlling the spices. No, this is not good for business. I don't want to be usurped. I don't want my family to be replaced. So he tries to play off of what he knows. I think when he sees Paul, though, that he's the monkey wrench, if you will. He's the one that throws everything out of cuss because he didn't think anybody would know the secret that they're all related. They're all cousins, which is some nasty
Yeah.
inbred stuff right there. But that's for another day.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the idea of the greed part is a real thing. Um, and once again, I mean, like this, there's so many relationships between this movie and like the Star
Mhm.
Wars movies and the Matrix movies. What I think about is, in the Matrix, when the the Oracle is talking to Neo about the Merovingian,
Oh,
and she says, like, what do men with power want? More
hour.
power, right? The Harkonnens, you're right. They're simple because at the end they want more money, more control, right? The Emperor wants to maintain his power. Even the Atreides come to Dune or Arrakis for
Mm-hmm.
power, to get power. Like Paul tells us, like Leto tells Paul, like, yo, we have water
Mm-hmm.
power, we want sand power because that's gonna help us out even more. So they all are part of that cycle and that system, which I think is more of a almost a requirement of a certain level of aristocracy
Mm.
than anything that is like on a case by case basis. It's almost like trying to find, and I know this is an extreme example, but it's almost like trying to find the nicest person on the plantation. Like, you're a part of the plantation too, so you're okay. Cool. You gave people some
Hmm.
books, and you didn't like
Right.
tell the the enslaver that they had extra chitlins over
Right.
there. Like,
Right.
but you're still on the plant. You still work
Yeah.
there. Like,
Right.
you're still on the site. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that
So
that that kind of reminds me of what's that Most Def line? Oh no, it's Talib Kweli, where it's like slaves arguing about who got the flyest chain. You know what I mean?
Right.
I definitely, that
Right.
hit home. That definitely hit home. And I think that's the point of this movie altogether, with the various themes and scenes. I mean, like, you got this sense of, like, not only the greed and the lust for power leading to betrayal, like with Dr. Yu and his wife, like
Mhm.
Vladimir tells him out the cut, like, look, if you do this for me, basically sabotage everything that you love and hold dear for this one person who, you know, let's face it, look who you're dealing with. You
Was
should have known that
was
he was,
dead
yeah,
anyway.
she
Yeah.
was dead, and you were dead anyway once you agreed to this. But he wasn't. He held out hope, and that's how the Emperor and the House of Harkin can play on the Atreides, because they do have a heart. They do have kindness and
Mhm.
gentleness within them. But it's that sense of family. So, one of the things I would propose is, this question to you is, what is family, especially in this movie?
Yeah, I think, and I know we talked about this earlier. Family is two things really. If I think if you live life in a certain way, it's the people you come into the world through, and it's the people you choose to walk the journey with,
Mm,
right? And I think Paul is benefited by coming through, having as his parents Leto Atreides and Lady Jessica, because it gives him a leg up in a lot of
yeah,
ways, right? But then, like you said, he's got Duncan Idaho. He's got the character I forgot, played by Josh
Gurney
Brolin,
Halleck.
Gurney Halleck, right? He's got him. He has
Hmm.
Stilgar, right? Who's like great in this movie. He's got these men, and as once his father is
Hmm.
killed, he gets these other men in his life that are giving him different jewels of manhood. So, and Paul's story is like one of like a boy who's lost his father and then needs other men to give him direction.
That's a dope theme right there too. That sense of direction, purpose. Being lost but then being found. But that again goes back to the theme of family. What is it? Obviously, like you said so eloquently, you have your blood relatives who usher you into this world physically. And then you
Mm.
have those that walk the journey with you. I mean, what better way to say this? Like, you and I are family. We may not be blood, but this thing we call life.
Hmm.
For the audience that doesn't know, like, CJ's seen me through some rough times, and I'm a better man because of his love, his guidance, caring, thoughtfulness, and sometimes he's just been like, "Yo, you need to wake up, man." Like, and I think that's what it is with Paul, where he's able to get, the affection that he needs when his father is gone. Like, those guys are there to
Hmm.
pick him up, but at the same token, he has those teachers. Baptism by fire. Like, he
Yeah.
literally had to kill one of the freemen in order to get his stripes, in order to prove that he
Yeah.
was a man, and that was one of their rites of passage. And even still, in
Yes.
death,
Yes.
he was still learning and teaching him about
Yes.
what his next move should be, how he should incorporate, the different people that are coming along the way in order to bring about this change that everyone is seeking. Now, he may have been a little bit gullible at times. I'll definitely give you that, but that's due to age and lack of experience. And he may have been even sinister and terrifying and manipulative. CJ said it best in our pre meeting, where he was like, it's interwoven what he wants and what the Freemen want, but
Yeah.
all the way, I definitely want the audience to really pay attention to this. Along the way, he's able to incorporate all the lessons from all of his masters, so he
Absolutely.
hones it to perfection.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, I mean, he's a student of the
Hmm.
game, right? And that's why he's successful. And the other person that he learns from, ironically enough, is Lord Harkonnen,
Hmm.
because at the end when he's sitting there, he's talking to his mom, and he's now seen that she's the
Yeah.
daughter of Lord Harkonnen. Then then he's like, "We'll survive by being Harkonnens,"
Mm.
right? Like, so that's the final
Yeah.
lesson. Like, he learned from the Atreides. He learned from Leto. He learned from his father. He learned from his father, obviously. He learned from Stilgar. He learned from Duncan
Learn
Idaho.
from
He
Jameis.
learned from Gurney.
Yeah.
Right. He learned from all of them, and now the last learning was from the grandfather.
Mm.
Now he's ready to get it. So, one of the things though that I did want to talk about, and it's interesting with Paul Atreides, right? So visually, and I think this is like really slick how this is set up. And I think when Denny Villeneuve, I know I messed that up, and apologies, because I love this movie and I love your work here. It's such a great casting of Timothee Chalamet
Mm.
as Paul
Yeah,
Atreides.
definitely.
he does not look like anything on Arrakis. And that is so intentional. It's not just his character and the way that he plays it. And I think Timothée Chalamet does a great job with this role.
Mm,
But visually, he does not look like a Fremen.
no.
He's got the long, flowy out hair. He's got like porcelain white skin. Even when he's out in the sun, it just gets a little bit darker. He's not a person of color in this. And it's like I don't know. I never get a sense. I don't know what the sense of like what it means to be white in the world of
Mm,
Dune 10,000 years into the future,
right.
right? And so I'm not going to presume that it means the same thing that it does in
Mm,
2024. But I do think that Paul's visual appearance is to suggest elitism
mm.
and an elitist and something that separates him from the world of the Fremen, and yet he becomes the savior of the Fremen. It's like great, great white savior type of
Mm.
stuff, and I think it's completely
Oh,
intentional
of
that it's
course.
done that way. And I think I think it's brilliant that it's done that way because it makes I think when you're watching it, it makes you think. There's a part of your brain that picks up and says, "Yeah, it is kind of weird that he's like running everything in like what feels like 20 minutes, but it really like is over the course of
Yeah,
6 months or
right.
so." But even still, and he's so obviously not one of them,
Mm.
not visually, not tone, not language. He can flip in and out of their language. They don't know. I'm sure he got a language they don't even understand. And for at the end, for them to be for him them to have the Atreides flag and be out there, man, that's some good preacher hustle right there, man.
Preacher.
Some good preacher hustle because it rests on the idea of this prophecy. It rests on the prophecy of the Lisan al Gaib. It rests on people believing in the idea of one person coming to save and liberate them, and it rests on the idea that their personal self determination is reliant on this other person's vision.
Wow, that is brilliant. Gotta give you your flowers on that one. Golf clap.
Like the golf clap. Thank you. Give me golf. Right, because we're old now, so we do the golf. We got to golf clap it up now.
But yeah, man, I think you hit on so many levels there, man. So many levels. The fact that it is intentional that he does stand out. It really drives the point
Yeah,
home. Um,
yeah.
the fact that he is able to not only be suave and debonair, but he could switch it up in a minute notice and cause like this religious fervor. Like that scene when he's
Mm-hmm.
going through and he's like, he didn't want to be there, mind you. He kept saying all along, if I go there, it's gonna
Mm-hmm.
be bloodshed, it's not cool. And
Mm-hmm.
and Gurney tells him anyway, yo, look, this is what it
It's
is,
gonna be
man.
bloodshed
Yeah, it's
anyway.
gonna be
Yeah,
bloodshed
yeah,
anyway. So, you either
yeah,
in it or you all the way in it, but you still in it. So he goes
yeah.
there, takes the serum, this lady rushes in, Chani rushes in, she's the heartbeat of this movie, mind you. You know,
Absolutely,
she's definitely on
absolutely.
the moral high ground, and that also is intentional. Playing off of the way Paul interacts with her is brilliant. I think the fact that
Mm-hmm.
once Paul is able to like really, especially in the like that last half of the movie, once he's able to pick up his
Oh
stride
man,
and he's like able to really peep game, I
amazing.
think that's like really when you really feel like, oh, okay, now it's getting even better. Like, how could it top?
Yeah,
And that rush, especially in the movie theater where all the audience it crescendoed and it saw like
it's amazing.
this is why I love the movie theater experience, especially with these types of
Yeah,
films, man. The very epic.
yeah. It's definitely shout outs to if you watch it at home,
Hmm.
you have your home set up. I'm sure sometime this will be re-released in
Oh yeah,
theaters. If you didn't see it in theaters, go see it because the scale of it is just so
yeah.
much different. And yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you're saying just about the character of Chani and how she operates. It sounds like we're getting close to the cake now. It sounds like we're getting into that realm. Why don't we pivot to
Yes,
that? Why don't
sir.
we go into the cake, man? So I know you got a couple slices
Yeah,
for us.
man. Well, great segue. I love the development and the arc of Paul Atreides. He's a grounded, real person. You know,
Hmm.
a good friend of ours always tells us, everyone is not one way or one thing. You're a
Hmm.
multitude of different things, and you express those, at different times. Sometimes, it may be literally seconds apart. The fact that Paul is able to and this is the great part because there were kids in the audience with us. They see this guy and he's sword fighting, and the little kids in the front,
Mhm.
in front of me, they were mimicking it, and I could harken back to like being a child and that sense of like,
Mhm.
oh, they're doing kung fu. I'm Bruce Lee, or oh, they got
Yeah.
lightsabers. I'm Anakin. Well, now this generation, like in front of me, they were seeing these little kids. They were seeing Paul Atreides on there, and he had the knife and he was battling it out, and it just brought me back to my childhood. But I digress.
Mhm.
Then you see him progress to like the grown man version of him, but
Yeah.
along that way, the trials and tribulations, developing a crush that might have been taboo because again, let's face it, these are a very close knit people, and here's this
Mhm.
outsider intruding in on their valuable resources, which is their people.
Yeah.
Um, and
Absolutely.
and just the way that Timothy is able to also hold his own against these greats. I mean, like you're talking about major heavyweights in this movie, man, from Christopher
Mhm.
Walken to Oscar what is
Oscar
it?
Isaac.
I mean,
Oscar Isaac.
like,
Yeah, that's my
yeah,
man.
like
Yeah.
most of these individuals, they are in a lot of established movies that generate a lot of movies. So I get the appeal. And I also
Mhm.
see like, man, he could be one of them. We'll be talking about
Yeah.
him in the same frame as these
Yeah.
individuals.
Yeah. He never. Yeah. Timothy Chalamet as an
Mhm.
actor never is small on the
No.
screen. Even like you said, he's standing there with heavyweights. He's in scenes with Josh
Yeah,
Brolin.
Rebecca
You know.
Ferguson from what is it? But what's Mission Impossible series? I hate the
Yeah.
fact they killed her off, but I mean, even
He's in scenes with heavyweights, and he's in there, like he's in there, and it makes you buy Paul being
oh
in there
yeah,
because, and I agree 100% what you're saying about his character. He does kind of, it's almost like visually by the end of the movie, he looks more like a man.
exactly. And I think that's the fact
So
that
it's
like the movie is broken up the way they filmed it.
yeah,
So I
yeah,
love the way how that blended itself to them, which is like
yeah,
one of my other favorite things about it. That sense of family, both behind the camera and in front of the camera. You have the like we talked about, the rapport, the camaraderie of all these talented actors. Stellan Skarsgard. Like I mean, all these individuals, like they really, really dive into this piece head on. You don't even see
mm-hmm,
them as like, oh, he was in Thor. You see him
mm-hmm,
as this fat slob bathing in this nasty liquid, and
yeah.
just ugh,
Looks like
yeah,
dishwater.
oh,
Yeah,
just terrible, terrible.
he's in the
But he pulls
dishwater.
it
Yeah,
off. The
yeah, he
fact
does.
that
He
Christopher
does.
Walken isn't a caricature, but an actual,
Yeah,
real live vital
yeah.
character in this movie, dope. And then last but not least, I just love the fact of like I'm an admirer of Josh Brolin's work.
Mm-hmm,
I think that he is a very talented actor, and he does his whole revenge skit like that speech he gives, and it is talked about in the book, but again, we're not going with the book. We're just dealing with the movie. The fact that he tells him, like, you remember me, essentially, you see the scar, you gave it to me. Now here's your comeuppance. I'm getting mine.
mm-hmm.
The fact that his whole world was taken from him, like that pain, then when he reunites with Paul and that exuberance, and that embrace, like it's like, not skipping a beat. You know what I mean? Like you
Yeah,
could tell it was a very tender, loving scene there, man. Props to Josh Brolin for really nailing this part. I really appreciate it.
yeah. Yeah, every scene he's adding
Yeah,
weight to it.
definitely.
He's like he's in the movie, even though he's not in it a
Yeah.
lot. When he's
No,
in
no.
it, you feel it, and he's down for Paul. He's like Stilgar 1.0.
Mm,
Like that's his man. He rides with Paul all the way, man, or young pup as he calls
definitely,
him.
definitely.
So yeah, so that's that cake. I'm gonna add a couple of quick things. We talked about a little bit earlier. I love the introduction of Feyd-Rautha.
Mm.
Feyd-Rautha, I just like when characters just go for it. And the guy who plays him, I know like previously he played
Yeah.
Elvis. So I know that there's a guy who played Elvis, and I'm forgetting the name right now, so apologies to that. But I love how he just plays that character, how he kind of does the voice and the mannerisms of Lord Harkonnen, played by Mr. Skarsgård, but he does it in almost like a younger sounding voice, which helps it to resonate well. And I just think the character is interesting, and I love what they did with that reverse lighting thing on
Mm.
the Harkonnen
Yeah.
planet. Just a great introduction there. Um, The next thing that I really dug was it's my favorite scene, and I talked to you about this earlier, man. The scene where
Oh,
I was about to say old lady Benny Gesserit again, but
guys,
when she's
guys,
talking,
Helen.
yeah, and when she tries to hit Paul with that, uh, consider what you're about to do, Paul Atreides, and he says silence, and it's like she falls down and falls backwards, and it's like abomination. Like it is such a great scene. Like I watch that every week. Like once a week, I watch that one scene. I'm on
Oh
YouTube
man.
or Instagram, whatever, because it's so beautiful. Because it's like the scene where you really realize that Paul is he's on some different stuff. Like you talked about it before, the last 45 minutes of this movie, you might as well when the movie ended, I was expecting it to be like a Jay-Z song playing called like Atreides. Because Paul's last 15 minutes is the most gangster stuff I've seen on in a film. Yo, in 20 minutes, he burns up Chani, kills his grandfather, kills his cousin, threatens an old man, takes his daughter, and then starts a holy war. In 15 minutes, this dude is a man. He's an animal. So and he checks old lady Benny Gesserit. So he does. It's just amazing. I love it. I love it. And then last but not least, yo, shout outs to Zendaya on this. When he says to Florence Pugh's character, I'm gonna take your hand in marriage. When you see the look in Chani's face, played by Zendaya, that is the black woman death stare that every man who has ever been in a relationship with a black woman has seen that look at one point. And when you do, you know, oh, there's about to be major problems.
Some furniture
And
moving.
it's like, look, it's gonna be some furniture movie. Like you had to know. Maybe Paul doesn't know because he hasn't seen that look ever
No.
before. But I know, me and every other man in that theater who's been with a black woman, who's dated a black woman, knows. Oh, Paul's in some serious trouble right now. So just the look on her face and the way she communicates with her eyes, I loved it. That's my cake.
Well, CJ hit the nail on the head. Shout out to Andrew Butler who played his man Feyd.
Yes.
Um,
Yep. 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 Andrew
yeah,
Butler.
definitely
Yes.
shout out to him.
Yes.
Yeah, like I didn't even recognize him. Like I was like, oh
No.
snap! Like what?
No.
Like
Killed it.
I
Killed the
was
role.
surprised. I mean,
Killed it.
like the depravity. This dude is like, yo,
Killed it.
he is a butcher, and we're
Yeah.
trying to be PG here, I mean, G preferably, but this dude is off the chains, man.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
fact that Paul, like, I love the fact that you pointed out his transition in 15 minutes encompassed those two movies, like that was so
Yo,
dope. So
I love it. It's the most gangsterish
and he
movie
was
at
taking
the end.
knives all over, his like getting stabbed and everything, like just eating it. Like,
Yo,
you're not gonna stop me. This
yo,
is my moment. Like, I'm
yeah,
putting the world
he
on
earned it.
notice. Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Paul.
Yeah, that's how I hit him. That's what I'm saying. They should have played that at the
Like,
end. Play that. Play that song at the end,
like,
man. Do something because that was a moment like you got like the music at the end was like kind of like
yeah,
nice
that
harp play. Like,
nah,
nah, I needed something with some
yeah,
bass at the end. But
wake you up type joint, man.
all right, so let's get into the things that we didn't like. Let's get into that. So what we call the hate. I know you got a couple
I only
things.
have a couple things
I,
because I'm nitpicking here, but like honestly, dude, I did not like Lady Jessica's character or lack thereof of character, morals, and scruples. The fact that she is able to use her femininity, sexuality, I don't see that as empowering. I get it. In this context, in this movie, these are the tools of the trade that, are in her toolbox,
mm-hmm,
and she has to utilize that for pure survival. And, in this future, you know,
mm-hmm,
everything is just everything is no, there's no off limits. Everything is fair game.
yeah,
But the
mm-hmm,
fact that she's manipulating her own son, she's using
mm-hmm,
him to get what she wants to
mm-hmm,
achieve her agenda. That is some
yep,
deceitful, like, I don't know, man. Like, this is your mom's. This is your mom's.
yeah,
No baking cookies over here. No pats on the back. No, hey, put the
yeah,
band-aid on. No lullabies. Nothing. She is like, yo, you're still too weak. You're still too naive. You're gonna bring your butt here to this town, to the northern part, whether you want to or not. I don't care what
yeah,
type of dreams or nightmares you're having. Yeah, this is how it's gonna get
yeah.
done.
Yeah, I just want to say just really quickly. I want to say that I agree with it. I almost had one of the questions I almost had for you was whether or not she is manipulating Paul. But I feel like it's so
Yeah.
obvious that it's not even a question worth
Yeah.
asking. That's definitely a part of it. I definitely agree with it, and
I think she
that's what
has
I'm
his
saying
best
about it.
interests at mind, just like, any mother would. But the fact of
Mhm.
how she goes about doing it and the secret she keeps is more
Yeah,
detrimental to his upbringing than it actually benefited
yeah,
him. Which leads to my next
yeah.
joint, just the constant manipulation that is ad nauseum. We've already covered this topic. I'd like to see a little bit more friendliness, but I know in this particular genre with this particular film that wasn't possible. And then last but not least, just the portrayal of the Freeman. I know that the movie, there's a lot of parallels between a lot of different religious sects, particularly the major
Mhm,
three. But with respect to this one in particular, the Freemen, they just seem to be a bunch of like extremists, religious zealots.
mhm.
Our boy Javier, who got busy and
Javier Bardem,
who
yes.
definitely got busy before, does it once again, where you can feel it's so palpable that, like, no, this guy is committed to the cause. Like, oh, what
Hmm.
do you want me to do? He says jump. He's saying not only how high, how long do you want me to levitate in the air? Like, I'll get it done.
Hmm.
Like, consider it
Yeah.
done. The fact that these individuals are basically so bombastic in their zeal for Paul, it leaves a lot less to desired because it brings up a lot of stereotypes and negative denotations and connotations.
Interesting.
But that's
Interesting.
just my 2 cents for it.
Got it. Got it. I'm gonna be really quick. I don't my dislikes. I would have loved more
Hmm.
Feyd-Rautha. I almost wish that Feyd-Rautha was in the first
Mm.
movie, so I could have gotten more of his
And
menacing.
terrorism.
Like, yeah, so you get to the end, because I knew he wasn't going to be
Oh,
defeat
of course
Paul,
not.
but I would have been good to see him get a couple of shots in on some other people that
Oh
were
yeah.
important, so that when you get to him, you're like, oh, okay, this dude
Yeah,
is
he's
thorough.
someone not to mess with.
Um, the last thing, it's interesting, man. Christopher Walken, and you talked about him a lot, and it's kind of made me think about this one a little bit more. I don't necessarily love him in this
Mm.
role because he's a fantastic actor, and there's no shade to that. I almost wanted the Emperor to be someone who was older, but also like had the ability to feel threatening. I
Mm.
didn't think he felt threatening, and I'm going to give you two examples of older actors who I think can be threatening. One I would say is James Woods.
Mm.
like James Woods just can pull off the
Yeah.
evilness that is a part of the Emperor with the sense of the charm, with the sense of the ability to threaten, and obviously I would say like Robert De Niro,
Okay. I like those picks. I like those picks.
who's like just Robert. He just pulls off
Right.
threatening so many different ways, man. But Christopher Walken, I get it, it works. That's all I got because, like you said, I would be nitpicking
Yeah.
too to take things away from here.
So I
So,
going to the
okay,
questions.
so
Yeah. Uh,
yeah, let's do it.
can you do the right thing for the excuse me, can you do the right thing wrongly?
Can you do the right thing wrongly? Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's why that maxim exists. The road to hell is paved with good
Intentions. Yeah.
intentions. Like I think people are constantly trying to do their thing. They're it's almost like I remember in a coaching program I was a part of, they used to always say, never forget that people are doing the best they can with the tools they have.
Mm.
Right. And if my tools are not that great, my outcomes are not going to be that great, no matter what I'm trying to build. Right. If I try to build a whole house and all I have is a hammer, it's not going to be that
Right.
successful. Right. Because I need to have more in my toolbox. I think that's what happens. And I know the reference to like the idea of what Paul is
Yeah.
going through. He's trying to do the right thing, but maybe he goes about the wrong
Yeah.
way.
Um, what's the difference between being a believer and being fanatical?
Yeah. It's a razor thin line. I know this is a reference to the Fremen and just
Mhm.
kind of how they deal with the prophecy of the Lisan al Gaib.
Yeah.
And I thought that your analysis of like the way that they embrace Paul as the Lisan al Gaib is an interesting thing too. I think the razor line on that is a believer should always be challenging their belief.
Mm.
Meaning, like, if your belief is strong, it should be open to criticism, even from you,
Mm.
to embolden it and making it stronger. It's like if I want my arm to be stronger, I have to keep lifting heavier weight for that to do it,
Right.
for that to happen. If I just say my arm is strong, but I don't work it out, it's not going to be strong anymore. I think what the fanatic does is the fanatic never tests that theory against something else. So the fanatic has the belief and never questions it at all, and and views questioning it as blasphemy. So nothing ever happens with it.
Mm,
So in a way, the fanatic's belief is only as strong as their unwillingness to even consider other ideas.
gotcha. Oh, that's tough right there.
It's a good question.
Great answer. Uh, my next question is: can you be in love with someone in a romantic sense, but decide to not be with them? If so, how is that love?
I got it. And this is the reference to Chani and how
Yeah,
Chani
yeah.
carries it at the end with Paul. Yeah, absolutely. Because I don't think that loving someone, I don't think that that being with someone, well, look at me. Let me say exactly how what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is that I think if you live long enough, you love long enough, you're going to find that most of the people that you really loved, you don't end up with. You may be with them for a time, but you're not guaranteed to be with them forever. So I think that's a part of the journey. I don't think that's, like you said, there's things in this movie that suggest that that's not even where the journey for these two characters are going to
Hmm.
go, depending on how close they stick to the source material. But I do think that love, like it kind of brings me back to something my dad used to always say about the idea of relationships getting to marriage. Every relationship is like running a play on a football field. Every play is designed to score a touchdown, but only one of them does.
Mm,
You might run 70 plays, three of them might get into the end zone. Every relationship is getting you closer to that goal, but that doesn't mean that any one of those is going to be the one that does it. So you got to keep playing the game, and so to speak, to get to a point where you get to that goal that you want. And along the way, you have people that come into your life that can be tremendously impactful and change your life in that moment that also will not be a part of your life in the long term.
wow. Yes.
There's some deep questions for Dune, man. Dang, Dune is doing it today. Dang, these are good ones,
Well, that's
man.
brilliant answers to see beneath the surface,
Goodness.
man.
Goodness gracious. All right. So my joints are going to be in the movie. So I'm telling you that right now. You crushed the questions this week, man. All right. So here's my first question. Okay. So, we have the whole idea of the Kwisatz Haderach and that being the goal of the Bene Gesserit. So my question is Paul's sister that's still in the womb really the Kwisatz Haderach and not Paul?
When CJ proposed this question, I was baffled, and I still am. And I say that because, what if the mother's just making all this up? Like, part of me was like, man, she's so manipulative
Mm,
and just despotic at times. What if she's just pulling his leg?
mm.
Then I was like, nah, they're showing the fetus too many times. And then,
Yeah, talking to
yeah, and I was
everybody.
just like, whoa, this is too much for me. Um, and then you know what? I'm gonna say she is, man. I'm gonna say
It
she
might be,
might
yeah.
be.
It
Yeah.
could be. Hmm. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that
Yeah.
plays out. It's kind of connected to my next question, which is it certain that the Kwisatz Haderach, and I know I might be saying it
Mhm.
wrong, and the Lisan Al Gaib have to be the same person?
It might be just two sides of the same coin. So it might
Mm,
be the same person. So like Two Face or like Anakin being the person who brings balance, and not balance in the sense of I'm purely good and I'm correcting,
I like
but
it.
like I go this way, I go that way till I'm an amalgamation of the two, and I help to
Yeah,
demonstrate like, yeah, everything serves a purpose. There's cohesiveness.
got it. I like that point. That's interesting too. It reminds me of something that a question that one of my mentors once asked, which is, how do you know that Lucifer, Satan, and the devil are all the same thing?
Mm.
That's a whole nother show
Yes, sir.
altogether. But
That's
anyway, all
powerful.
right. So that's a good one. All right. Getting on to evil. Um, why does the universe allow the Bene Gesserit to exist? Like everyone has to know that they're manipulating everybody, right? Like why? Why do you think they're still
They
around?
serve a purpose, and that purpose is to test individuals mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. How
Mm,
strong are they in their convictions? Are you going
mm,
to allow these individuals to, play puppet master and be a
mm,
spin doctor and, put all this propaganda out there? Or are you going to come to your common sense, and say, hey, enough is enough? CJ said something that was dope in the pregame, and that was, hey, we don't have to wait for the one 20 of us, 30 of us, 40 of us get together, and then
Get it,
and
do
we
it
get it
ourselves.
done ourselves. And I think that's the case with these females. You know, the world, the universe is saying like, you have the opportunity to overthrow these evil women. You know, you don't have to be a pawn in their game. So do something
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, I like the idea of them being they're serving almost like a
Yeah.
necessary evil in the universe. By the way, HBO Max is going to have a show about the Bene
Yeah, I'll
Gesserit,
tune
which
into that.
I'm gonna check that out because I think I'm interested to see that story about the quest to
Yeah.
create the Kwisatz Haderach and what does that mean. All right, two more questions. So this one is a little bit of a projection question. All right, so Dune 3. If we're doing whenever Dune 3
Mm-hmm.
comes out, we're doing this show. Which of these characters you think will still be alive?
Mm,
And I'm just gonna give the name of the character, and you tell me if they're gonna be alive or dead. All right, first person, alive or dead. Paul
alive.
Atreides, Lady Jessica.
Still alive. She's too evil to live. I mean, to die.
Got it, got it. Respectfully, old lady Bene
You know
Gesserit.
she's in the long game. Yeah, she's taking
Okay.
names.
Stilgar, Stilgar.
Oh, it's a wrap for him. It's a
I
wrap.
don't think he's gonna make. He's gonna make it.
Yeah.
All right, and last but not least, Chani.
It's Zendaya, so nah, they can't kill her off. I think they'll
All right,
change it
all right.
somehow where she doesn't.
I got it. She got the plot
Yeah.
armor. Okay. All right. Interesting. All right. And then last question. We've talked about Dune 2. We talked a lot about Dune 1 and as a result of talking about it. Does Dune 2 surpass Dune
Easily.
1?
Easily. Yeah,
Really?
easily.
Really? So you think it's not even a
I
consideration?
think it's on some like I prefer Godfather 2 over Godfather 1. I prefer Empire Strikes Back
Mm,
over A New Hope. Like, yeah,
mm,
man. Like, I like Terminator 2
mm.
over Terminator 1. Like, yeah. Like I think he gets the I
Interesting.
think he gets it, man. Like there's too many action
Interesting.
scenes. The characters are fully developed. They're
Yeah.
very comfortable in their own skin. They're doing their thing in this, man. Like there's too many pluses for me to discount them so
Yeah.
lightly. Yeah, I'm going. Yeah,
It, it's an extremely well done
yeah.
movie. I think, it's interesting. I saw, when the first Dune came out was during the
Oh, and it was
pandemic.
dope. Don't get me wrong.
So,
Dope. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. But I saw it during the pandemic. I never got a chance to see it in a movie
yeah.
theater. So I saw it at home. And I liked it when I first saw it. And then 2 years later, I watched it
Mm,
more. I loved it even
yeah,
more. I'm going to be interested to see how I feel about this movie two
yeah.
years from now before Dune 3 comes out. Okay. Let's go on to the popcorn, man. What you
Well,
rating
that's a
this
great
movie?
segue, man. We were debating 4.5. I'm going 4 3/4, man. I almost said 5. I'm going 4 3/4.
It's
Yeah,
right. It's right on the line,
yeah,
isn't
it's
it?
right
It's
there.
right on the. Yo, I feel the same way, man. I'm giving it 4.5, but I could easily
Mm-hmm.
see 2 years from now going back and saying, no, it's a
Yeah,
five
yeah,
star movie
yep,
for sure.
yep.
I think this will definitely be a Best Picture of the
Oh yeah,
Year candidate,
definitely.
and will probably win a lot of Oscars because, like you said, it's so well done, acting wise, cinematography, story,
Mm-hmm.
writing,
You name
everything.
it.
It's just
Casting.
an amazing
Yeah,
movie. It's right there. I don't know why it's not like a definite five, but it's right
yeah.
there. So, all right, major themes, man. What you got for us, man?
So man, this was tough for me because I love this movie, and it's hard for me to narrow down to like that culminating one liner. But I think what
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go with is the love of power or the power of love, and the role that destiny plays in both arenas. In the expansive universe of Dune Part 2, the themes of power and control are intricately woven with the fates and destinies of its characters, embodying the complex nature of humanity itself. Central to these themes is the idea of respect, which serves as a foundation for building rapport among the various factions and characters. Faith and commitment are tested as characters navigate their predetermined paths, highlighting the trust, or the lack thereof, that individuals place in one another and their cause. However, with power as a central aim, jealousy and envy soon infiltrate, eroding the bonds formed on respect and shared goals. The quest for control over the desert planet and its valuable resource, spice, leads to judgment, condemnation, and just outright aggravation as the characters grapple with their obligations to their factions, their loved ones, and to themselves.
There it is. The main themes from Dune 2,
Yeah.
man. Thank you for that. Thank you for that conclusion. conclusionary statement on there. This has been a fun one.
Yeah.
This has been a fun movie to talk about.
I mean, it has it
Yeah,
all,
this has
man.
been
Politics,
yeah, it's got
social
yeah,
economics,
it's
love,
yeah,
man.
yeah. Yeah, without trying to offend people, like I've said, like the Dune movies are like Star Wars for grown-ups,
Mhm.
man. That's like it's like at that level. Amazing film, really well done. Shout outs to it. Next week we're coming back with 99 Homes, right? So that's what we're coming with. I'm looking forward to talking about that. Once again, the Sticky Floors podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts. We are on Apple Podcasts, we are on Spotify, we are on YouTube. Please like, subscribe, comment, share. And definitely on the comments and the subscriptions, that helps us, man. That helps our
Definitely.
channel. It helps us to grow, helps us to continue to do this good work, helps us to build the show and to build the program. Thank you for listening. Peace.